My DNA results show my bio-mom is someone living under my roof, and it isn't mom. It all started as a stupid joke. One of those ideas you get when you are bored scrolling through the internet at 3 in the morning. I have always considered myself the black sheep of the family. I am 22 years old. I have dark, curly hair and olive skin. My parents, on the other hand, are the prototype of the classic American couple. They have light skin, blue eyes, and straight hair. My older sister, Vanessa, who is 39 years old, looks a lot like them. My whole life, the running joke at family dinners was that I must be the milkman's son or that I was switched at birth in the hospital. We all laughed. I laughed. I never felt it was malicious, just a genetic curiosity. So, when I saw a buy one get one free offer on Ancestry and health kits a month ago, I thought it would be the perfect gift for Mom and me. I imagined we would laugh, seeing that maybe I had a lost Italian or Spanish ancestor that explained my looks. I bought the kits. We spit into the plastic tubes and mailed them off. I forgot about the whole thing for a few weeks, busy with my final exams at university and the end of the year stress. The notification arrived in my email 3 days before Christmas. I was in my room, with the door closed, listening to music. I opened the email with excitement, expecting to see a pie chart with pretty colors. The first thing I saw was my ethnic breakdown. 30% Southern Europe, 20% British Isles. Nothing too shocking. But then I clicked on the tab that said DNA matches. This feature shows you people who have also taken the test on the same platform and share genetic material with you. I expected to see my mother on the list, since we sent the samples together. And there she was, but the label the platform had assigned to her did not say mother. It said grandmother or aunt. We shared approximately 25% of our DNA. I stared at the screen, confused. I thought it was an algorithm error. I refreshed the page. The information was still there. 25%. A mother shares 50% with her child. It is basic biology. I felt a knot in my stomach. If the woman who raised me, the woman who breastfed me and bandaged my scraped knees, only shares 25% of my blood, that means she is not my mother. She is my grandmother. My mind started racing at 1,000 miles per hour. If she is my grandmother, who is my mother? I scrolled down the list of matches. There was one more name, a name that froze my blood. Vanessa, my older sister. The platform indicated that we shared 49.8% of DNA. The suggested label said, Mother. I dropped the phone on the bed. The world felt like it was tilting to one side. Vanessa is 39 years old. I am 22. That means she was 17 when I was born. My parents, the people I call Mom and Dad, were in their 40s when I was born. They always told me I was a late accident, a menopause surprise. Suddenly, all my childhood memories took on a different and sinister meaning. Vanessa was always distant with me. She never acted like a loving big sister. She went to college on the other side of the country as soon as she could and rarely visited. When she came for holidays, she always brought me expensive gifts, but avoided hugging me. I thought she just did not like children. Now I realize she could not bear to look at me because I was the living proof of her interrupted adolescence. I got up and looked in the mirror. I searched for Vanessa's features in my face. The eyes. We had the same eye shape, although different colors. The nose. Oh my God, I had her nose. I walked downstairs like a zombie. My parents, or rather, my grandparents, were in the kitchen preparing dinner. It smelled like roast and gingerbread cookies. A perfect domestic scene that now seemed like a grotesque play to me. Mom was cutting vegetables. She looked at me and smiled. That smile that had always made me feel safe now made me nauseous. She asked if I wanted to taste the sauce. I could not answer. Vanessa was supposed to arrive that night to spend Christmas with us. It was going to be the first time in 3 years that we would all be under the same roof. I had to wait. I had to be sure before dropping the atomic bomb. I went back to my room and started researching internet forums. I looked for cases of false positives, lab errors, anything that would give me a way out. But all the experts said the same thing. Close family relationships are almost impossible to confuse with those percentages. Vanessa arrived at 8 in the evening. She brought a bottle of wine and gifts wrapped in gold paper. She greeted my parents with effusive hugs. When she got to me, she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and pulled away as if I burned. We ate dinner. The conversation was trivial. They talked about Vanessa's job in the city, the weather, the neighbors. I could not swallow a single bite. I felt like every word they said was part of a giant conspiracy. Dessert time came. My father, the man who taught me to ride a bike and shave, raised his glass to make a toast. He said how proud he was of his family, of his 2 wonderful children. I could not take it anymore. I stood up so abruptly that my chair fell backward with a terrible crash. The silence at the table was instant. The 3 of them looked at me with wide eyes. I took my phone out of my pocket, opened the results app, and put it in the center of the table, next to the half-eaten turkey. I told them with a trembling voice, I took the DNA test, the one I gave us as a gift. The results arrived today. My mother's face turned white as paper. My father put his glass on the table with a shaking hand. Vanessa, however, froze. She did not even look at the phone. She looked directly into my eyes, and I knew she knew. She always knew. I asked, almost screaming, why does it say that Vanessa shares 50% of my DNA? Why does it say she is my mother? The silence stretched for what seemed like hours. Only the ticking of the wall clock could be heard. Finally, my grandmother, broke down crying. It was a heartbreaking cry, one of those that come from the bottom of the soul. My father covered his face with his hands. Vanessa remained motionless, but a solitary tear rolled down her cheek. Then the explanations began, rushed and full of excuses. Vanessa was 17. She was a brilliant girl with a full scholarship to a prestigious university. She got pregnant by a boy in her senior year who disappeared as soon as he found out. My grandparents, being conservative and worried about what people would say in our small religious town, decided to take control. They did not want Vanessa to ruin her future. They did not want the scandal. So they came up with a plan. They took Vanessa to a cabin in the mountains during the last months of the pregnancy, telling the neighbors she had gone to take care of a sick aunt. When I was born, they returned saying my mother had a surprise baby. Vanessa went back to school, graduated, and left. I stayed, growing up believing that my grandparents were my parents and that my mother was my sister. I screamed at them. I told them my whole life was a lie. I asked them how they could look me in the face every day for 22 years and lie to me so easily. Vanessa spoke for the first time. Her voice was cold, devoid of emotion. She said they did it for me, that she was not ready to be a mother, that they gave me a better life than she could have given me being a single teenager without money. I replied that did not give them the right to steal my identity. I asked who my biological father was. Vanessa refused to tell me. She said it did not matter, that he did not know about my existence, and it was better that way. The argument escalated. There were screams, broken plates, and words that cannot be taken back. I told them they disgusted me. I grabbed my car keys and left the house, ignoring my grandmother's pleas for me to stay. I drove aimlessly for hours. I ended up in the parking lot of a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. I have been here for 2 days. I have not answered their calls or their hundreds of text messages. My phone is full of notifications. My grandmother says please come back, that we can fix it, that they are still my family. Vanessa sent me a long email explaining her side, saying she has always loved me in her own way, but pain and shame prevented her from getting close. I do not know what to do. I feel like I lost my parents and my sister in a single night. Legally, I am my grandparents' son. They formally adopted me when I was born, so on paper everything is sealed. But biologically, I am a stranger in my own story. The worst part is thinking about all the times people said Vanessa and I looked nothing alike to be siblings. They were right. We are not siblings. Now I am alone in this motel room, eating junk food from the vending machine in the middle of Christmas, wondering how I am going to rebuild my life from scratch. Should I try to find my biological father, even though Vanessa refuses to give me his name? With the DNA results, I could try to triangulate his identity if any relative of his has taken the test. But I am scared. Scared of finding another stranger who does not want me. Scared of discovering that I am the product of something even worse than I imagine. I feel betrayed, manipulated, and incredibly stupid for not noticing before. There were signs. The photos of my mother pregnant with me are scarce. She is always wearing very loose clothes or sitting behind tables. I always thought it was because she did not like how she looked overweight. Now I know those photos do not even exist. I need advice. Is it possible to forgive a lie of this magnitude? Can they go back to being my parents after knowing they are my grandparents? And Vanessa? How am I supposed to treat her now? Like a distant sister, or like a mother who abandoned me to save her reputation? Every time I close my eyes, I see the percentage on the screen. 49.8%. That number will haunt me for the rest of my days. Update 2. The father. Update 1. It has been 3 days since Christmas dinner. I am still at the motel, but my money is running out. I am a college student. My accounts are linked to my parents. I see they transferred $1,000 to me this morning. I guess it is their way of buying time or making sure I do not starve, but I feel dirty seeing that money. I decided to reply to Vanessa's email. I was brief. I told her I would only speak to her again if she gave me my biological father's name. I do not want intermediaries. I do not want more secrets. Her reply arrived an hour ago. She only wrote a first name, a last name, and a city. I looked the man up on social media. He looks like me. He has the same jawline, my same dark curls. In his profile picture, he is with 2 small children and a blonde woman. He looks happy. Now I have a new grenade in my hand, and I do not know whether to pull the pin. If I contact this man, I could destroy his family, just as mine was destroyed. But I have the right to know, do not I? I have the right to know if he knew about me, or if Vanessa lied to him too. My grandmother came to the motel this morning. I do not know how she knew where I was. I guess from the phone tracker I forgot to turn off. She banged on the door for 20 minutes, crying and begging me to open up. I sat on the edge of the bed, with the television volume up high, so I would not hear her sobs. It was the hardest thing I have ever had to do. I wanted to open the door and let her hug me, to go back to being the little boy who knew nothing. But that boy does not exist anymore. She finally left, but she slid a letter under the door. In the letter, she tells me details of my birth that I never knew. She says Vanessa wanted to give me up for adoption to an outside family, but they, my grandparents, could not bear the idea of blood of their blood being in the hands of strangers. She says, "We love you so much that we decided to live a lie to protect you." Is that love? Or is it selfishness? Were they protecting me or protecting their image of a perfect family before society? I am thinking about going back home just to pick up my things and move in with a friend. I cannot keep living in that house, surrounded by fake photos and memories built on paper foundations. I feel like I am grieving for people who are still alive. My parents have died, and in their place are 2 scared old people and an unknown woman who shares my DNA. Yesterday evening, I decided I was not going to sit idly by. Vanessa said my biological father knew nothing. She said it was a summer fling. But I have his DNA. Or at least, I have half of his DNA in me. I went back into the Ancestry app. I filtered the results to see only matches on the paternal side. There were no close matches, no one like a father or a brother. But there was a second cousin, a guy named Robert, with a last name I did not recognize. I sent him a message through the platform. I was vague. I told him I was building my family tree and that it looked like we had a relative in common. I asked him if he knew anyone who had been in my city 23 years ago during the summer. While I was waiting for his answer, I received a visit. Someone knocked on my motel room door. I looked through the peephole. It was Vanessa. I do not know how she found me, but I guess my father used his connections or they tracked my credit card before I started paying in cash. I opened the door. Vanessa looked terrible. She had deep dark circles and wore no makeup, something unheard of for her. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside without saying anything. She came in and sat on the only chair in the room. I sat on the bed. "I brought you this," she said, taking a manila envelope out of her purse. "It is the truth, the whole truth." I opened the envelope. Inside were photos. Photos of her pregnant. Photos of her holding me in the hospital the day I was born, with a face of absolute terror. And there was a letter, handwritten and dated 22 years ago. It was a letter she wrote for me the day she handed me over to my grandparents. I read it in silence. "Dear son," the letter said, "today I let you go. Not because I do not love you, but because I do not know how to be what you need. I am still a child. I am scared. Mom and Dad say this is for the best. They say they will give you everything I cannot. I hope someday you forgive me for being weak." I looked up. Vanessa was crying silently. "I am sorry," she said again. "I wanted to tell you 1,000 times. Every birthday, every Christmas. But my parents, they threatened me. They said if I told you, it would break your heart, that it would destroy our family. They made me believe silence was an act of love. Who is my father?" I asked again. This time I did not scream. She sighed and took another photo out of her purse. It was an old photo, a Polaroid type. And it was Vanessa, very young, hugging a tall boy with curly hair like mine. "His name is David," she said. "He was a camp counselor that summer. He was 19. When I told him I was pregnant, he got scared. But he did not disappear like I said at dinner. That was a lie. He wanted to take responsibility. He wanted to marry me." My jaw dropped. "What? My parents did not allow it," Vanessa continued. "They said he was a nobody, a poor boy with no future who would ruin my life. They threatened him. My father, your grandfather, threatened to report him for statutory offenses, even though we were only 2 years apart. They told him if he came near me again or tried to contact you, they would put him in jail. They gave him money and forced him to sign a relinquishment of parental rights before you were even born." I felt a new rage, colder and more dangerous than before. My grandparents not only stole my mother, they also stole my father. They stole the possibility of having a normal family, even if it was imperfect. They bought my life. "Do you know where he is now?" I asked. Vanessa nodded. "I have looked him up on the internet over the years. He lives in the neighboring state. He is an architect. He is married. He has 2 daughters. She gave me his address written on a piece of paper. Do what you have to do," Vanessa said. "I am not going to protect our parents' lies anymore. I am leaving the house. I am moving to my apartment in the city, and I am going to cut contact with them for a while. If you ever want to talk, I will be there, not as your sister, and maybe I do not deserve to be your mother, but as someone who is also a victim of them." Vanessa left. I was left alone in the motel room with my biological father's address in my hand. David, architect, married, 2 daughters. I have two sisters, two biological sisters, who do not know I exist. Update 3. The encounter. Today is New Year's Day. While everyone is celebrating and making resolutions for the future, I am loading my car to make a 4-hour trip to the neighboring state. I have made a decision. I am going to find David. I am not going to call. I am not going to write. I am going to show up at his door. I need to see him. I need to know if it is true that he wanted me. I need to know if he thinks about me. I know this is selfish. I know I am going to arrive like an atomic bomb in his perfect life. Probably his wife knows nothing about me. His daughters surely do not know. They have a secret older brother. But I do not care about protecting other people's feelings anymore. I have spent 22 years living a lie designed for the comfort of others. Now it is my turn to seek my truth, no matter who it hurts. Before leaving, I sent a message to the family group chat where my grandparents and Vanessa are. I wrote, I am going to find my father. Do not try to stop me. If I find out any of you interfere, I will publish this whole story in the local newspaper with names and last names. This is no longer your secret. It is my life. My grandmother called me immediately. I blocked her. My grandfather sent me a message saying I was making a mistake, that David is a loser who took money in exchange for his son. I do not care if he took the money. He was 19 years old and threatened by a powerful lawyer. I want to hear his version. I arrived in the city where David lives at 3 in the afternoon. It is a nice suburban neighborhood with big houses and manicured lawns, very similar to the neighborhood where I grew up, which is a bitter irony. I parked my car 2 houses down from the address Vanessa gave me. I sat there for an hour, gathering courage. I saw a car pull into his garage. A man got out. It was him, David. He looked older than in the photo, of course. He had some gray in his beard, but he kept in shape, and he looked so much like me it gave me chills. The same way of walking, the same hand gestures. He went into the house. A few minutes later, he came out to the front yard with 2 little girls, about 8 and 10 years old. They were playing with a dog. He looked happy. He looked like the father I never had. I felt a pang of jealousy, so strong I almost started the car and left. Why them and not me? But then one of the girls threw the ball, and it rolled to the sidewalk near my car. David walked toward the street to retrieve it. He saw me sitting inside the car. Our eyes met. I watched his expression change, from curiosity to confusion, and then to absolute shock. He stood paralyzed in the middle of the street, with the ball in his hand. I got out of the car. My legs felt like jelly. I walked toward him. He did not move. He just stared at me, scanning my face. David? I asked. His voice came out as a strangled whisper. Is it you? He asked. Are Vanessa's son? I nodded. It is me. David dropped the ball. He put his hands to his head. His eyes filled with tears instantly. Oh my God, he said. Oh my God. I thought I would never see you. They told me you had moved to Europe. They told me if I looked for you, they would hurt you. He took a step toward me and, without hesitation, hugged me. It was not an awkward hug like my family's. It was a desperate, strong hug, a father's hug. I broke down. I started crying in the middle of the street, hugging this stranger who shared my blood. He invited me in. His wife came to the door, confused. David told her, with a broken voice, it is him. It is my son. It turns out his wife knew everything. David had told her about me before they got married. He told her about the blackmail, about the money he never spent and donated to charity because it burned his hands, about my grandparents' threats. I sat in his living room and we talked for hours. He told me his side. My grandparents were ruthless. They used their power to terrorize a 19-year-old boy and his poor family. They made him believe that if he did not sign, Vanessa would go to a reform school and he would go to jail. I thought about you every day, David told me. I looked for photos of you on the internet, but your grandparents keep everything very private. I just hoped that someday, when you were of legal age, you would look for me. I met my sisters. They're shy but curious. They looked at me like I was an alien. David offered for me to stay at his house. He said I have a room there if I want it. He said he wants to make up for lost time, if I am willing. I do not know what is going to happen now. My life is still a mess. I have to go back to university in 2 weeks. I have to deal with my grandparents and the legal situation of my adoption. But for the first time in days, I feel like I can breathe. I have a father, and he wanted me. Conclusion: I have decided to stay a few days with David and his family. I need to get away from my grandparents' toxicity. Vanessa has been calling me. She wants to see me before I go back to college. I think I am going to agree to see her. Now I know she was also a victim, a girl manipulated by controlling parents. My grandparents, on the other hand, are dead to me. I have spoken to a lawyer recommended by David to see how I can annul my adoption or at least emancipate my identity from them legally. I want my biological last name. I want to be David and Vanessa's son, not my grandparents' son. This Christmas, I discovered my life was a lie, but I think the new year has brought me the opportunity to build a truth of my own. It is going to be hard, and there is going to be a lot of legal and emotional drama ahead, but I am no longer alone. Thanks everyone for reading. If there are more important updates, like the lawsuit against my grandparents, or how the relationship with my sisters progresses, I will post it. For now, I am going to try to enjoy a dinner with my real dad.